Hi there, and welcome back to another edition of Scale Up Radio, the podcast inspired by the Entrepreneurial Scale Up system and designed to make navigating our scale up journeys that little bit easier by learning from each other's experiences. I'm Granger Forson, and on this episode of the show, I'm joined by Jack Marley of P3M Works. Today, we're diving into the realm of cybersecurity and digital delivery, uncovering Jack's innovative strategies for project success, talent retention, and business growth through applying project method thinking to business creation and scaling. To ensure you don't miss any future episodes, do subscribe to Scale Up Radio wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. Also, you can nominate a guest for Scale Up Radio if you know someone with an interesting scale-up journey. You can find out how in the show notes. So let's now dive into the inspiring journey of meticulous planning, strategic growth, and team culture with Jack Marley. Hello to Jack Marley. Welcome to Scale Up Radio. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, Granger. Jack Marley here. Thank you so much for having me. Jack Marley. I am the founder of P3M Works, which is a cybersecurity and digital delivery company. So,
cybersecurity and digital delivery, two different things, or are they the same thing? Tell us about it. What do you do?
They cross over, to be honest with you. I think cyber sort of has maybe the definition has potentially grown and absorbed other things that aren't quite cyber. So yeah, that's fine. I think for just so you get the real understanding, so we do cybersecurity, and that's one thing. Digital is another thing. So that might be building software, that might be helping clients understand what they need to do next in the digital space. But for P3M Works, the clue's in the name. If you get the P3M side, it's very much doing the delivery. So sitting at the strategic partnership with clients, understanding what their objectives are and how that is delivered. So it's really good to have some ideas, right? I think, oh, brilliant, I want to do this in cybersecurity. I want to install a new, training program, or I want to do a new firewall. But actually, how do I actually do that? And how do I make sure it's effective? How do I manage the cost, quality, and time to make sure that I'm getting exactly what I want? And that's where we sit and essentially ensure that happens. So that's where our customers come to us, because we're the guys who are able to do that rather than going to a massive company that would traditionally do it all under one house.
Okay. So how big are you? How long have you been going?
So there's 5 of us at the moment, so 5 full-time employees, and we've been going for 2.5 years now. So started in September 2021. Started very much as a one-man band, looking to do some essentially cybersecurity consulting and project management consulting, with the aim of, okay, in 2 years' time, I might look at bringing on some more people. But actually, through word of mouth and also through some sort of clever advertising, was able to get quite a lot of work coming in. And then once I was successful at one project, then the next project would come in, and you start to become a bit of a buzz. And that led me down the path to taking on 1, then 2, then 3, and so on, people coming in to work alongside me and to help deliver cyber objectives, but also do some of the digital pieces as well, and project management that wraps around that.
So I'm a potential client. I'm sitting there thinking about maybe cybersecurity, or I've got I need a new piece of software that will improve our working activities. How do I go about finding you? What would I be looking for? How do I knock on your door?
Yeah, so that's a real good question. Something we've actually put quite a lot of thought into recently. So P3M does quite a lot of work with the government. So P3M Works, we do a lot of work with the government. We work in that space of cybersecurity. But actually, we do private sector work as well. So going back to your point, we have a website, and the website has our case studies. It shows you the type of work that we do. And it has a box where you can contact us, and you can then come in and say, right, well, I have this idea. Can you help us do it? We're actually working now to make that journey a little bit easier, because we realize that sometimes there's a bit of a mystique around what we do, and we're trying to open up a little bit more. And as you say, if you've got normally it's a problem, or if you think you've got a solution to something and you want that implemented, then that's when the conversation happens. So let's say you come knocking on the door, you find the door, and you get through to myself, one of the team. We normally have a conversation And usually it is because something's gone wrong in the cybersecurity world. So you've had an incident or you've had a big problem and you're like, oh no, I need to stop that from happening again. And whilst you're at it, can you look at these things? So that's where the conversation usually starts. But sometimes it also starts with, there's a new piece of legislation or there's another thing that we need to do to be compliant. Can you talk us through that and deliver essentially a project plan and go off and deliver it so we achieve these objectives? So those are the two sides of the coin when you're approaching us, really. And as I said, there's frameworks, there's other stuff that where we work with government, and that's how we're selected there. But from business to business, it's very much through the website, but also word of mouth.
Yeah, I can see that. So, all right. So, I've come knocking on the door. We've had this conversation. Yeah, I'm starting to understand what I get from you guys and how you can help. What makes you different? What do you strive to be best at?
So for us, it's doing what we actually say we're going to do. So a lot of the time, you'll contact a organization and they will use subcontractors that do whatever it is they need to do to try and deliver sort of outcomes. For us, it's a little bit different. We take time to actually understand what the client really wants. What effect do they want to achieve, rather than here's some software that does this, does that, and it all gets knitted together. So that's what we look to do, to strive for. But also the niche piece is the actual delivery. So cost, quality, and time. So rather than just give us a blank check and make this happen, we actually spend a lot of time on the project plan and coming up with the outcomes. So the customer actually knows when they're expecting the outcomes to come in, and then it's all done essentially in-house. So you have that assurance that we're taking the actual delivery of the project seriously, rather than being consultants that say, oh, we've got to this bit now. Oh, we need some more money to get us to point B, to point C, to point D. So really it's that quality and delivery, quality in the actual the actual project itself, making sure that we're running to cost and also to time. I think our clients really value the time element as well, because usually it's a fast reaction and they just need to know that they can come to us when they just need a cyber outcome or a digital outcome to cut time, cost, and quality.
Yeah. So not being just a consultant, you deliver, and the reason you can deliver is the attention to detail around the planning and the real thinking. And I like that expression you use, finding out what their effect that they want out of it.
Yeah.
What's the outcome? Not just I'm selling you some software or some service to do.
Absolutely. And customers sometimes say, oh, we need X software. I say, okay, cool. Why do you need that? Or we need X training or X thing or X firewall or X protective measure. And when you have the conversation, you realize that actually most of the time that's not really what they need. They need something that sounds or looks a bit like it. But there's easier, some often cheaper ways, but also faster ways to achieve the same effect that X software would achieve, or X person would achieve as well, or X training. And that's because we're in a product-led industry. People look at the products and say, great, this can protect us from email. And so, well, okay, that's great, it can. But have you thought about how if you did this, then you would also have the same effect that product is selling, but maybe cheaper, or maybe keeping your capacity in-house.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you do work with the government and private work. What's the sort of split of your activity?
So at the moment, it's probably about 60% government, with the aspiration to, as everyone, the aspiration to sort of try and get that 50-50. We work in defense mainly, but also in central government, again, mainly on cybersecurity projects. So again, looking at the delivery of those larger projects. So where we're looking at doing some technical work as well. So building various different cyber products or assuring cyber in some way, but also doing the delivery. And again, it's difficult to go into some of the detail there of the government projects. Yeah. However, in the private sector, absolutely going in there, looking at doing some digital work. So that could be anything from building a content delivery network and actually assuring that and making sure it's built up to purpose, to going in there and helping organizations understand security around their data flows. and getting that done and getting people ready for an accreditation, or getting people in a position of, actually, we're not quite confident about what's going on here. Can you come in there and lead a project of security awareness and security design? Again, that's sort of the standard pieces of work that we'll be doing. Quite complex, and that's why the delivery is important, because most of the things that we do are complex, and complexity can sometimes it does create risk. It pushes up timescales, it pushes up costs, everything like that. So, especially in today's economy, you need to have essentially an organization that's able to manage the solution, but also get you on that cost, quality, and time. And deliver to those standards, rather than signing off a blank check and having pieces of work just go on and on.
Yep. Well, I can remember from past time of implementation of IT projects never seem to go on time. So yes, if you can guarantee that and take that forwards, that's brilliant. So let's talk about the private sector rather than the government sector. What's the marketplace like? You've talked about consultants and people that just outsource the doing activity. Is it a challenging marketplace? Is it a growing marketplace? What's the market like?
I'd say it's challenging. I think everyone's looking for a product, and that's fine. Ultimately, that's sort of a natural thing to do, right? And that's what people are there to. So they're very much product led, and there's some great products out there as well. But actually, essentially adopting those products and making sure they're used correctly is another challenge in itself. So there's sometimes work around adoption there, but more often than not, it's normally human factors. So you've got a marketplace that likes products, but actually a lot of the time their cybersecurity threats are coming from the human factor. So that's people clicking on phishing emails, that's people sharing passwords, that's people reusing passwords, losing IT, like not locking things down correctly. So it's the basics that we need to get hold of straight away and work on. And again, we talk about talking to clients and understanding what their needs are. A lot of it is, let's just purchase this to solve this problem, and actually it's a lot deeper than that, and it's understanding. So there's that's when we talk about the market in that way, product led, but actually a lot of it is transformation. So it's actually transforming behaviors rather than just buying a new product. And the product people out there will probably hate me for saying that, and there's some brilliant products out there, and that doesn't stop people from going from doing that. But products seldom solve everything in one nice monthly subscription.
Yeah, so it's not just products; it's the growth. Okay, so let's talk about the journey then. Well, how 2.5 years ago, you set out to just work with yourself, and you now got 5 staff. So why did you start?
Well, I was leaving an organisation at the time, and I didn't want to go back working for someone else. I think is probably the easy way to say it. And I've always wanted to start my own company, or at least work as a contractor and see how that goes. And at the time, I think we're still sort of in the pandemic, sort of coming out of the pandemic. And at the time, I thought, you know what, this is a good opportunity for me just to go out and see what happens and give myself 2 months. I gave myself a month. Gave myself a month to find work. So it's very much when you go out on your own, you either succeed or you don't. So I went out, knew that I wanted to focus on delivery. So focus on the time, cost, and quality, and not just the endless churn of, we're just a little bit more, getting more, and just sort of bums on seats type thing. I wanted to go out there and achieve effect and come out with outcomes. And that's what I stuck out of doing. There's a company actually called WeShape. I'm happy to drop them on this as well because they're great. Who liked that and said, "Hey, look, we've got a project here that needs exactly that. Can you come in and give us a hand on it?" So went there, finished that project, made sure that it was done correctly. Had a really good time doing it. Really enjoyed working for myself, and then went and sort of got tapped up by other clients who were a fan of the work that I'd done previously in defence, but also could see what I was doing on my own and had difficulties they needed to solve in the project space, where their ideas are brilliant, but they didn't know how to execute it correctly. And I know how to execute it correctly. So I was then brought in to do the execution to make sure it got to it met those milestones. We got to where we needed to be. The risks were managed correctly. The actual technology was integrated correctly and understood properly. We built it from there. And again, we came on to 6 months after I started, bringing on someone to sort of work with me, and then started to get more of a sort of a name for myself in the defense space and also the private space, and started to scale appropriately. It's not been easy. It's certainly been really challenging. It's not a story of, oh yeah, it's just gone really nicely over the last 2.5 years. It's been really challenging, and knowing how to get the best out of people and how to get people to want to work for you as well when they've got so many other opportunities open to them, and creating a really positive culture that attracts the right people, but also attracts the right clients as well. And that's part of the growth story, and getting that culture right, getting that sales piece right that reflects the culture that we've got, to be able to go in there and work in a really transparent manner where attention to detail matters and your integrity is everything, has been really important to everyone at P3 Works.
So let's start with clients then. You talked about finding clients, and the process of doing what's gone right, what's gone wrong, what's your key learnings around that?
Yeah, I think remembering that people do business with people. I don't know if that's a really great phrase to use or not, but it's still I don't know if it's still valid, but it seems very much valid for me.
It still is.
Yeah, you've got to go out there, you've got to network, you've got to talk to people, you've got to do things like this, you've got to have proper communication, and you've got to not be afraid to sell the benefits of what you can do. And that comes really unnaturally for me because I'm not really a natural salesman. I'm normally more of a doer. And that bit of the face-to-face and getting in front of people, showing people what we can do has gone really, really well. And that's where we're strongest at. What we haven't been that great at is generating new work via social media and going out and going on proper sales campaigns. And that's something we're rectifying at the moment. So that's one of my biggest learnings is, if no one knows about you, no one can buy you ultimately. And people need to know about us. And people need to know that actually you don't necessarily need to go to a massive consultancy to get the same type of effect, and you can probably get it a lot cheaper from going smaller to businesses where a lot of the knowledge is stored anyway, where we can go off and deliver it. And it's getting that message out there. But yeah, that's really it for me. It's great to go and talk to people, but actually you need to amplify yourself. And there's ways of amplifying yourself, whereas social media or other marketing campaigns. It's not cheap, but it's also necessary if you want to grow a business.
Yeah, and I love that you're a doer, and often when we create businesses around our skill sets, that's what we're good at, and suddenly we find we've got to become salespeople as well, and you've gone through that learning curve and realized that and developed that. That's brilliant. Yeah. So people, you mentioned people, you mentioned attracting people, encouraging, making them excited to join you, and then looking after them when they're in your business. So, that's a huge activity of any business owner as we grow and scale. So talked about attracting. How have what's gone right, what's gone wrong with that?
Yeah, I think so. What's gone right is that we've known that we needed to, I say we, my Ben, who's very much my right-hand man on all things P3 Works. We've known that we've had to absolutely fight for talent and retain talent, and not just take it for granted that people want to come and work for a startup. So if you work for a startup, you need to have startup benefits. And that doesn't always mean, pool tables and everything else. It can be other sort of niche things. So for example, we have something called the P3M Power Hour, where every 2 weeks, everyone gets essentially an hour off work to go and do admin or do whatever it is they want to do. And that's gone down really, really well. It's allowed people to take longer lunches where they can go off and play tennis or do whatever else they wanted to do, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So it's off the wall type ideas like that. Of course, we need to provide the standard perks like healthcare and holiday and all that other jazz that goes with it. But really, we needed a place where we can all come together. So we've got office space in Cheltenham, so where the team can come together and recognize that we're social people. And working from home is great, but it's not something we can do constantly. And that people come to work a lot of the time for each other. As sort of cheesy as that sounds, it's true. People want to be in a team. Yep. So, and especially as project management, it's all about teamwork and bringing people together and delivering. So that's really important. We also needed to get really interesting projects, and people are driven to companies by the projects that they do and the values that they have. So it's a mixture of having really clear values and living by those values and demonstrating them all the time. So it's not just something that we've just randomly got on mugs and in the office and stuff. It's demonstrated. and reward people for living those values as well, and making sure that when we're making decisions, what do the values tell us about those, and is it the right thing to do? I think some of the challenges that we've got and what we've had is selecting the right people. So you've got a lot of talented people out there, but we need to attract people that are in it for the sort of the long run and are going to give back to P3M, and not necessarily people that are going to come in for a couple of months or however that might be, and take all the really interesting experience that we give them and then disappear off, because otherwise that's the lifeblood of the company just leaving. And that's really difficult in consultancy, particularly now where there's a bit of a battle for resource as it is anyway. So it's making sure that we create a really hospitable environment for people. And also we take the learning that we've all had in previous careers and we talk about it openly of the good things and the bad things. And we try not to replicate any of the bad things, and we try and amplify as many of the good things as possible. That's been key. And just not shutting down ideas either. So any member of staff can come up with something and we'll take it seriously. We've just implemented something called a coffee corner, which one of the team have come up with to get people talking a little bit more to just non-work related stuff. And that's come down really well.
Coffee corner, fabulous. Listening to ideas, absolutely brilliant. And that's about retention. But you talked about trying to attract. So how have you gone about finding those right people that come in the first place then?
So you partnered with a couple of recruiters, well, 2 recruiters, ultimately 2 quite niche recruiters that we look for. Also, social media presence helps. So especially with anyone entering the workplace at the moment, they're going to look at LinkedIn, they're going to look at your website, and they're going to try and understand what it is you do. So having a strong social media presence, and a social media presence that doesn't just give you, this is what work is, but also this is the sort of fun that we get up to as well, that helps recruit or bring people into the business. I think also not messing people around at the recruitment stage, i.e. putting them through like 5 different interviews. I wouldn't do that. So why would I expect someone else to come work with me to do that? So it's having a really clear upfront recruitment process where we can talk to people. It's an open process. It's also not a process that is about us interviewing a potential new joiner. It's about the new joiner understanding more about P3M Works, because it's a place that they will want to come and work for, hopefully for a long time. So it's making sure we get that right. And competency-based interviews are really good, and we do part of that, but we're not interviewing for technical expertise. Technical expertise is exceptionally important, clearly, but it's also about making sure we've got people that are going to add to the culture and are going to enjoy working at P3M Works and getting that right as well. And that's why when we go to our 2 recruitment partners, we look at that and we make that work. And we're also very clear about that when we go off on our recruitment campaigns as and when they come about.
Yeah. Okay. So as the business has grown, you have to make some key decisions. You're thinking about what you're going to try and do next. How do you go about, decision making?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and it's something that we didn't get quite right, I think, last year. Last year we tried to make too much of a long-term decision making and following what is a really strategic decision making to get us to where we want to be in a couple of years' time, and that does work to an example. But I think we were too slavish to that, and we were chasing work that we were close to, but then ended up not winning. And actually, I think we should have looked back and thought, we could probably have been a bit more agile. Now, agile is such a buzzword, but a lot of decision making is having objectives for a year, 2 years time, maybe a few months time, and then agile development to get to those objectives. So assessing what the environment is like. Okay, great. How do we get there? Using being able to essentially plan from a month by month basis to get to where we want to be, and that's been really important. So essentially, high level objectives. And maybe sometimes they're financial, but other times they might be influential. Sometimes they're the types of projects that we want to win. And then agile development to get to those areas. And being able to change things if we need to change things, and benefiting from being a small company where we can change quite quickly, rather than a large company that can't quite do that. And it takes a long time to change the ship, to turn the ship. And that was one of the key learnings from last year, is that actually you can change plans quickly, know when to do so, and not just stick to it.
Yeah, No, I like that very, very much so. Having that long-term plan and that short-term agile thinking.
Yeah.
My background, I have agile software development and setting it up and putting it into businesses. So I fully appreciate that thinking of how that would bring that to you. And if you've already got that mindset, that's brilliant. Within Bismarck, we use a 90-day planning routine to bring in the
Yeah.
same type of disciplines
Yeah.
within businesses. So I can see how that works.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. You know where your long-term objectives are, but you need to go through quite short-term planning in order to just pull you closer to those objectives rather than following something and thinking actually the environment's changed, the market's changed, or whatever it might be, and then just thinking, yeah, hey, we need to change this. We're not going to win this contract.
Yeah,
it's changed. Let's go for something else.
Which is very much like in the software development. Well, you have the epics, and then you break those down to user stories, but you only break down the user stories a few sprints ahead of what you're actually going to do. You don't need to detail the entire project right at the very beginnings.
Yeah, absolutely. We run, again, as a delivery company, we run P frameworks and the same thing. We have sprints. We run the company in sprints as well for all the internal work for that reason.
Yeah,
so take what you're good at and apply it to the company as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, you're talking about up my street there. I fully appreciate and understand that. That's awesome. Well done. That's a great implementation and thinking around that. So, a couple of things. And cash is king. So, how do you keep on top of cash in the business?
Yeah, I mean, it really is king, especially in a consultancy business where it can sometimes yo-yo with people being in lots of work, people not being in work. It's difficult. So probably not the greatest thing to do. Clearly, there are accountancy. I've got an accountant and I've got accountancy software, and that's all nice and that's lovely. But actually, it's understanding the basics and doing the basics well. So understanding and making sure you know what your pipeline is of cash that's coming into the business, and you know what could potentially affect that. Understanding your profit and loss on a monthly basis, understanding when your tax is going out, whether it's corporation tax, VAT, etc., and really like knowing exactly where that is. It can take some time, especially if you're new to business, to really understand those key factors when they're coming out. But it's very much planning. If you take all that, strip all everything I'm saying there back, it's planning. And you can't really be successful unless you plan. So this is financial planning and going into it and thinking, okay, we've got these projects. We know they're extending to this time. We know this is where this is coming off. Understanding what's our normal monthly cash flow, and that's how I do things, versus our revenue, and making sure that that's going forward and remaining as lean as possible. That doesn't mean that we can't have nice things, but it does mean that we're not going to be spending crazy money on business flights out to, I don't know, Dubai or whatever it is we might go when we do our trips abroad under the UK Union flag. So it's those types of things that really keep us sort of grounded. Really good financial planning, and you have to know your money to the sort of the pence that are coming out on a monthly basis. Not getting too carried away with spend. Understanding that there could be rainy days ahead, and making sure you've got that backup. You've got that nice runway that you have just in case everything gets turned off, and then you've got a runway that you've got left in the bank that you can use to get people out on as well.
Yeah, having that runway in the bank is very important. I often call that with my clients and talk about the difference between a lucky business and a business that goes bust. People are lucky, but actually no, what luck is how much cash you have in the bank, and you call it the runway. Brilliant. Yeah,
exactly. I think in my early days, one of the guys who I was working alongside from another sort of a smaller business, he was hoping for work to come through at a certain time. And I remember thinking back to myself, well, hope isn't a strategy, and therefore you've got a plan. And that's where it was before then, but very much it just reinforces that you have to plan, particularly when people are depending on you. You've got employees and etc. You have to make sure that you've got the right strategy, and you absolutely understand financially where you sit at all times.
Yeah. And being a business owner, it can be tough. You talked about it. Sometimes it's really hard. We call that overwhelm. Do you have any hints and tips that you use to sort of manage overwhelm?
Yeah, know how to de-stress yourself. And that might sound really stupid, but it's true. And for a long time, I struggled with that. So for me, I know that I have to do fitness. I have to go to the gym a couple of times a week. If I don't do that, I won't think correctly. I used to write on my whiteboard, like, what de-stresses me. And I actually think that's a really useful thing to do because that helps cope with overwhelm. And having whether that's going, I don't know, playing on the Xbox or whatever else it might be, going to the gym, going for a run. It'll be like I build Lego, you can see my Lego behind me, that helps me concentrate on something else. And that keeps me going as well. And it helps reset me a little bit. I'd also, being a sole owner is really difficult, but I would also really, really recommend getting a mentor. And maybe sometimes not just one, but several mentors who you really trust and you can share things with. Because it's not always going to go to plan. I mean, P3 and Works, we're successful, but it's not always gone to plan because that's the way the world is. I don't think there's any business that's just sort of walked it. So it's understanding, being mentally resilient enough to endure those times, and you can't just do that by winging it. You've got to know yourself.
Brilliant. Oh, fantastic. And I love the de-stressing with building Lego. I've not come across that one before. Something new and exciting there. Brilliant. Thank you. So what do you love most about your business?
I think the people. And honestly, I think that's like straight off the bat. It's the team. So the people that come and work in P3 and Works, and also the clients as well. Coming together with a team to take on a really technically challenging project. Know that the client is like, how are you guys going to do this? And then you come together, you build a plan, you understand the technical aspects involved, you come up with a solution, whether it's high-level design document, project initiation document, going through that magic, which is just process and good process, and then coming to the client with a proposal and the client saying, yeah, actually, I get this. Yeah, this will work. And then demonstrating it to them. And we had a scenario just before Christmas, we needed to get a project done, just needed to happen. We were onboarded, I think, in late October, and it needed to be done. I think it's like 23rd. We're making up. That's probably a weekend, but it needs to be done like a couple of days before Christmas. Client it was probably pretty much a Hail Mary for them. But using just scheduling, understanding what needed to happen, breaking everything down to its basis, brought confidence for them. And we went and executed it, and the team did brilliantly. And the client was like, yeah, great. You guys know what you're doing, and there's more work that's following on from them because you demonstrated that we knew what we're doing. So being able to give the team and clients an opportunity where we can be excellent is what really, really gets me going, but clearly working in technology as well. It's really a marriage of the two.
And I love that expression you just made, going through the magic. I've worked in project management leadership roles as well, and trying to get people to project plan and to really think about the detail and everything else can be very torturous work. It really can in some businesses. But you calling it magic, it was an absolutely beautiful moment there for me. I totally agree. I love that. But you've applied that magic to business thinking as well. So let's talk about the next 5 years. We'll meet again in 5 years. We'll have a coffee face to face rather than maybe over Zoom this time. And we'll be looking back at the 5 years that's just gone by. What's happened for you both professionally and personally to say the 5 years have been successful?
So for the next 5 years, I think personally, let's start personally first. So personally, I've got to retain a work-life balance, and it's really easy as a sole founder and as any entrepreneur to take on too much, and then your business becomes your life, and that does happen. It's something that happens, but I need to sort of get back from that and be able to delegate appropriately and have a really healthy business where people are able to operate not independently but working with each other, and it's not all through me. So I'm less of a single point of failure. I'm not a single point of failure now, but I'm certainly not one going into the future. And I have some time where my partner and I, my dog, can go off and do what we want to do as well, and take actual holidays. So that's part of it. But professionally, I think we're looking to grow the team. So I think there's no reason why P3 and Works can't be a significant player in some spaces in government with cyber and other things as well, in project delivery, and be a name known there for really good and assured project delivery, but also in the private sector. So it's not one or the other. We want to really grow both and take the lessons learned from both sectors and swap them with one another. And for me as well, we're lucky enough to be part of the Plexel Accelerator, which is based out of London. It's where a lot of the top startups in the UK get taken into and accelerated. And we're lucky to essentially work with them on some overseas projects as well. And just now, I'm in the Middle East in a couple of weeks' time to go and work on some bits there. And I think expanding overseas would also be part of that 5-year plan. So we have an overseas presence. But I think above all, I want to be a business, and P3M strives to be a business where we look at dealing with the skills gap that we currently have in cybersecurity and also digital in general, project delivery. There is a skills gap yet there. And we take active steps to harness that. So we've taken on a master's student, for example, just come out of university with a cyber master's, and giving her an opportunity to really strut herself, and she's doing brilliantly to do that, and actually expand that a bit further and have our own take on T-level students, take on apprentices, and bring them forward and actually give them the opportunity to work in some really challenging but really sort of stimulating environments and projects. So they get real world experience, and that's nurtured through the business, and there's a proper career path for people there inside P3M, because at my heart, I'm really passionate about people, technology, and particularly sort of early careers, because I think it's been a difficult time, particularly since the pandemic, where you've got people's education disrupted. I think businesses need to be doing as much as possible to try and pull the next generation through as much as possible, because I think they've been disadvantaged is probably not the right word, but they've been disrupted. And it takes time to look at education and see what businesses can do to help there and get people from education into industry as seamlessly as possible.
Well, Jack, what a fantastic conversation we've had. And to me, sort of summing up, you've taken your passion and experience in planning, in thinking about attention to detail that comes when you're thinking about technology, and you've applied that to business and your business life, and that's why you've been successful over those 2.5 years and growing, and still growing with the passion that you're going to. Yeah, you've taken your niche, but you've wrapped that around a really organizing approach to building and growing a business, focusing on quality, focusing on delivery, focusing on time, focusing on attention to detail, thinking about the transformational behavior, the outcome that your clients really want to do, and you'll then build the plan that gives that to them, rather than saying you need this technology or that technology, and really understanding about them. And the real sort of way that you've gone about realizing it's about people, building the space for people, building the environment for people, building the structure of listening and improving, finding those right people and taking them through a process where the recruitment finds those people that need to be developed and to grow, and taking you forwards through that. You've talked about cash management and P&L planning, just like it's a structure that needs to take place, and absolutely it just is that, and you've demonstrated that absolutely beautifully, the way you've taken that through, and even to the level of realization of de-stress and how you've organized yourself to be able to do that. And I think that's brilliant. The building Lego. I've not built Lego for many years, so maybe that needs to come back and thinking about that. and it all comes down to, I think, to that wonderful thing you said. Going through the magic of planning, the magic of really thinking about how you're going to resolve the problem to get the outcome that your client wants. But it's not just that. You've done the magic of planning a business, the magic of the structure. Yes, it isn't easy. Absolutely, it isn't. But you've definitely demonstrated some real skill set and brought that to help your business grow. It's been a fantastic conversation. We always finish with a quick fire round, if I may. So a few questions to finish us off. If you would go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, don't be so serious. Despite that really helping me in later life. But I was very serious as a child. I was very I was too serious. I really wanted to succeed. I think that sometimes got in the way of me having fun. I lightened up a lot at university. That's great. And I sort of found my balance really then. But yeah, certainly as a child, too serious, very uptight. But we live and learn.
Absolutely. Any books you recommend?
I actually really like Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. Green Lights it's not a business book, although it probably is in some ways. It's just a book about you can it's a book about taking sort of some negativity and turning it into positive, and it's very much about positive thinking. I think that my favorite quote from that book is, "I've got plenty of evidence to see that the universe is conspiring to aid me rather than conspiring against me," and I take that with me and I think about that all the time. And I do try and read that book at least once a year. It's a good way of keeping you, I think, mentally robust and not getting too down on life.
Brilliant. I use the phrase that is the universe working for you or against you? Yeah. So if it's working for you, you're here to learn. If you're working against you, all you do is ever complain. So yeah, brilliant. Yeah, totally recommend. Podcasts, do you listen to any you recommend?
So I actually, truthfully, I don't listen to too many. I think my main one I listen to is an F1 podcast, so P1 with Matt and Tommy. So nothing to do with business. What I've started to listen to though, and it's probably really in the mainstream at the moment, I think it's the one with it's leading with Rory Stewart and also with Alistair Campbell, and they also do The Rest is Politics. I think that they do touch on business matters as well, but politically, I don't think you can run a business nowadays without being really politically and economically aware, and they do a really good job of covering current events.
Brilliant. Onto your mobile phone, any apps that make a difference for you?
Maybe it's an anti-question to this, but I spend time limiting my time on my mobile phone. I see that as it takes energy from me. However, apps that I think are really good. So clearly, I'm an entrepreneur. I use LinkedIn. That's great, but I do limit my time on there. I've got like a little social media blocker that blocks me after 30 minutes of LinkedIn, or an hour. I think it's an hour of general social media, wherever I define that to be. But ChatGPT is the other one that I use.
Yeah, a very exciting tool to use in any part of any business, and I highly recommend people should be playing with it and thinking how it's going to accelerate and do things. Brilliant. Yeah, fantastic advice. My favorite question of all: who's had the most influence on you as a business leader?
So if I went down to sort of baseline, certainly my father. So my dad, he's run a couple of businesses. He's worked as a police officer as well. He's done quite a lot of different things. He's very good at the high level vision, much better than I am. And I'm good at the execution and getting into the weeds. And I've always sort of seen that as well, a bit of a yin and yang. And he's been really great there. And he's always taught me sort of the right things and also sometimes the wrong things to do in business. And he's been great as a mentor. I think as well, as odd as it sounds, I look at sort of the F1 team principles a lot. So they do things very differently. And clearly I don't know any of these people, but I think the way that that some of them conduct themselves and the way that they look at business is also very interesting. That's more of a casual thing rather than an actual realistic thing like my dad. But Jerry, the Williams boss, whose just escaped me, the way he conducts himself and the way he's quite open and the way he leads the team is also quite inspirational, quite refreshing, a bit of a breath of fresh air. And looking at that leadership style, you can always learn from other people's leadership styles, at least what they put out.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And finally, Jack, how can people get hold of you?
So you can try and find me on LinkedIn, but you can definitely find P3M Works on LinkedIn. You can find us at our website, which is www.p3mworks.co.uk. And also you can give us an email at info@p3mworks.co.uk.
Brilliant. Jack, thank you so much for this conversation today.
No, great, Jeff. Thank you for having me on. Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.